Sometimes the celebrity world and the prison system collide in ways you just don't expect.
Definitely not something you see every day.
Right. We might see it in movies, but, well, reality just threw a curveball.
Yeah.
Today we're diving straight into one of those moments, an alleged attack on rapper Tory Lanez while he's actually incarcerated.
Exactly. And our main source for this deep dive is a recent Associated Press news article. It gives us the details from the California Correctional Institution in Tehachapi.
Oh.
So our mission here really is to cut through any speculation and just understand the core facts, what supposedly happened, who's the alleged attacker, and, what background does the article provide?
Okay, sounds good. Let's get right into it then. The AP article confirms authorities reported an attack on Lanez. Where exactly did they say this happened inside the prison?
Yeah, the report states it took place inside one of the housing units there at Tehachapi.
Inside a housing unit. Got it.
Yeah.
And what about Lanez? How was he doing right after this happened? What did the article say about his condition?
Well, the day after the attack was reported, a spokesperson for the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation said Lanez was in fair condition.
Fair condition. Okay. Now, I remember seeing other things circulating, especially like on social media. Some claims sounded much, much worse. Did the AP article address those?
Yes. That's a really important point to clarify.
Mm-hmm.
So while the prison officials kept it, straightforward fair condition, didn't specify how he was attacked, there's this Instagram post going around.
Right.
That post made some, frankly, pretty dramatic claims. Said he was stabbed like 14 times, collapsed lungs, really serious stuff.
Wow, okay.
But, and this is key, the AP article itself doesn't confirm those specifics. It sticks to the official report. Attack happened. Lanez was in fair condition. It doesn't detail the method of the attack.
Right. So official channel saying one thing, social media buzzing with something else entirely. Okay. Let's talk about the person officials identified. Who do they say is the alleged attacker?
They've named him as Santino Casio. He's 42 years old.
Santino Casio. And what's his status now within the prison, given this allegation?
He's been placed in restricted housing, which is basically, a more isolated setting, standard procedure, really, while investigations happen. Both the prison itself and the Kern County District Attorney's Office are looking into it.
Makes sense. Now, the article also gives some background on Casio, specifically his criminal history.
Okay.
And reading through it, it paints a pretty concerning picture. What did the AP report detail about his past?
Yeah, it's quite extensive and serious. The article notes he's been serving a life sentence since way back in 2004.
Life. For what?
For second-degree murder and also first-degree attempted murder.
Okay.
But that's not all. On top of that, he got another 6 years tacked on in 2008, this time for assaulting another prisoner with a deadly weapon.
Inside prison, already serving life.
Inside prison, yeah. And then even more recently, 2018, another 2 years added for possession and manufacture of a deadly weapon by a prisoner.
So a clear pattern of, violence, including violence within prison walls. Did the article explicitly connect that past behavior to this current situation?
It absolutely did. It specifically highlights that Casio already had a conviction for assaulting an inmate.
Right, the 2008 one.
Exactly. So this past incident of in-prison violence seems directly relevant to the current accusations involving Tory Lanez. And, it naturally raises some serious questions about managing inmates with that kind of sidery.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, let's shift gears slightly and talk about Tory Lanez himself. Just to make sure everyone's up to speed, remind us why he's in prison in the first place. It's connected to a very high-profile case.
That's right. Lanez is currently serving a 10-year prison sentence. This stems from the shooting of hip-hop artist Megan Thee Stallion back in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
He was convicted on several charges, including assault with a semi-automatic firearm.
And this is all happening, as you said, at the California Correctional Institution in Tehachapi. What kind of place is that?
The article gives a little context. It's about 100 miles north of Los Angeles, kind of out in the Mojave Desert.
Yeah.
And it houses quite a few inmates, around 1,700 or so. They're classified as medium and maximum security.
So not a low-security facility. And just to quickly recap the legal stuff that landed Lanez there, what were the specific convictions the article mentioned from that December 2022 verdict?
Sure. So the main ones were assault with a semi-automatic firearm having a loaded, unregistered firearm in a vehicle, and also discharging a firearm with gross negligence.
And Megan Thee Stallion's testimony was obviously central to that trial. The article touches on that too, right? What she described.
It does. It mentions her testimony about what happened after that party back in July 2020. She testified that Lanez shot at her feet while she was walking away from an SUV.
And told her to dance. Wasn't that part of it?
Yes, and told her to dance. The article also includes the detail that she needed surgery to remove bullet fragments from both feet. Pretty harrowing testimony.
Definitely. Now, after the conviction, Lanez's team tried to get it overturned, right?
Correct. The AP article notes that their motion for a new trial was denied by the judge.
Okay.
But it also mentions that his lawyers are still appealing the conviction itself, so that process is ongoing.
And even from prison, there's been more legal activity involving Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion.
Yeah, that's another layer. The article mentions that Megan recently alleged she was experiencing ongoing harassment from Lanez.
From prison? How?
Apparently through surrogates or intermediaries, people acting on his behalf is the implication.
Wow.
And as a result of those allegations, a judge issued a protective order against Lanez back in January. It actually extends all the way through 2030 and prohibits any contact or harassment.
Okay. So that's the context of his incarceration and the related legal issues. The article also gave a little background on Lanez before all this, didn't it? His music career.
Just briefly, it identifies him as 32 years old, Canadian, started out releasing mixtapes way back in 2009, and he built up a pretty significant following over the years, eventually signed to major labels, released albums, and actually had 2 albums reach the top 10 on the Billboard charts. So, he achieved considerable mainstream success.
Mm-hmm. And then, circling back to the alleged attack in prison, despite the severity of some reports, there was also this message shared afterwards, offering a different take.
That's right. It's kind of interesting. The same Instagram post that made those really serious claims about stabbing and collapsed lungs.
Yeah.
It also stated that Lanez was, quote, talking normally, in good spirits, and deeply thankful to God that he is pulling through. Quite a contrast. It is a contrast between that account and, well, the lack of specific detail coming from the official prison report.
Okay. So as we wrap up this deep dive based on the AP article, what are the really key things we should be taking away from all this?
Well, I think there are 2 main poles here. First, you have the alleged attacker, Santino Casio, and his really extensive documented history of violent offenses, specifically including prior assaults inside prison. That history is crucial context.
Right. It looms large over this whole incident.
Exactly. And then juxtapose that with Tory Lanez himself. He's a celebrity, yes, but he's incarcerated for a serious violent crime. And now he's allegedly become the victim of violence within that same system.
Yeah, it's definitely a complex, layered situation. You've got someone convicted of violence, allegedly being subjected to violence, but someone with a known history of exactly that kind of behavior within prison. It's unsettling.
It really is. And I think it pushes you to ask some tough questions. What does an incident like this really tell us about the dangers, the complexities, the inherent challenges within our correctional facilities? And maybe more specifically, how does or how should the long and violent prior history of someone like Santino Casio influence how we think about prison safety, how violent inmates are managed, and ultimately what the goals of rehabilitation even look like in practice?
That's a heavy question to end on. Definitely something for all of us and for you listening to think about.